I'm the one she erased from her perfect family portrait. She didn't know I kept the receipts that would end everything she built. My name is Maya Reeves, and I'm 29 years old. I work as a financial analyst in Vancouver, specializing in forensic accounting for corporate fraud cases. I'm good at finding things people try to hide. Numbers don't lie, even when people do. I learned that skill the hard way, growing up with a mother who turned lying into a full-time career. My mother's name is Christine Reeves, though online she went by Christina Bloom. Maybe you've heard of her. She ran one of the largest parenting blogs in Canada, with over 800,000 followers across all platforms. Her brand was built on authenticity, on being real about motherhood. She wrote books. She did speaking tours. She had sponsorship deals with major brands like Huggies, Walmart Canada, and Indigo Books. Her tagline was, "Raising humans, one honest moment at a time." The irony wasn't lost on me, because here's what her 800,000 followers didn't know. Christine had 3 children. My younger brother, Noah, who's 25 now. My younger sister, Emma, who's 23. And me. Except if you looked at her blog, her Instagram, her Facebook page, her published books, you'd only see 2 children. Noah and Emma appeared in thousands of photos. Birthday parties, Christmas mornings, first days of school, family vacations. Every milestone documented and monetized. I appeared in none of them. Not because I died. Not because I lived somewhere else. I lived in the same house until I was 14 years old. I sat at the same dinner table. I slept down the hall. But in Christine's carefully curated online world, I simply didn't exist. Now, where are you watching from, and what time is it there? I'm curious who else is awake thinking about the ways families can erase you while you're still breathing. Let me take you back to the beginning. When I was 7 years old, my mother started her blog. It began innocently enough. Just a mom sharing stories about her kids. But then the followers came. The comments. The validation. And then the money. By the time I was 9, Christine had quit her job as an elementary school teacher to blog full-time. My father, Richard, worked as a corporate photographer, and he became her dedicated content creator. Every moment of our lives became potential material. Breakfast had to be photogenic. Outfits had to be coordinated. Smiles had to be camera-ready. Noah and Emma were naturals. They loved the attention. They'd pose without being asked, perform on command, say cute things that could be quoted in captions. I was different. I hated it. I had severe social anxiety that started around age 8. Large crowds made me panic. Being filmed made my skin crawl. I'd hide when my mother pulled out her camera. I'd refuse to smile. I'd ruin shots by looking away or covering my face. I had sensory issues with certain fabrics, so I wouldn't wear the matching outfits she bought for sibling photos. At first, she tried to work around it. She'd take photos when I wasn't looking. She'd bribe me. She'd get angry. But I was stubborn. And my anxiety only got worse as the pressure increased. When I was 11, I had a massive panic attack during a sponsored video shoot for a children's clothing brand. We were supposed to do a back-to-school fashion show in our living room. I was wearing a scratchy sweater that made my skin feel like it was on fire. The ring lights were too bright. My mother kept saying, "Just one more take," over and over. I started hyperventilating. I pulled at the sweater. I was crying and couldn't stop. The brand pulled their sponsorship. It was a $15,000 deal. That night, I heard my parents arguing in their bedroom. "She's costing us money," my mother said. "This was supposed to be our family business. She's ruining everything." "She's 11 years old, Christine," my father said, but his voice was weak. He always was. "She needs therapy," my mother said. "But do you know how that would look? If I admitted one of my kids needed professional help? The whole brand is about raising emotionally healthy children. It would destroy my credibility. So I never got therapy. Instead, I got erased. It started subtly. My mother began taking photos when I wasn't home. School events, family dinners, weekend activities. She'd send me to my room or to my grandmother's house, then stage elaborate photo shoots with just Noah and Emma. When she posted these photos, she never mentioned I existed. Followers would comment, "Your kids are so beautiful," and she'd respond with heart emojis, never correcting the number. By the time I was 12, the erasure was complete. She redesigned her blog banner. It featured a silhouette of a mother with 2 children, not 3. She wrote a post about finding her groove as a mom of 2. She never explained what happened to the 3rd child, who used to appear in older posts. She simply deleted those photos and moved forward. I remember the day I realized what was happening. I was 12, scrolling through her Instagram on my iPod Touch. I went back through 2 years of posts, hundreds of photos. I appeared in exactly 0. It wasn't just online. At Noah's hockey games, she'd introduce herself to other parents as Noah and Emma's mom. At school functions, she'd bring cupcakes labeled "From the Reeves family" with a custom sticker showing 4 stick figures. 2 parents, 2 kids. When relatives asked about me, she had a rehearsed answer. "Maya's going through a phase. She's very private. We're respecting her boundaries." It sounded so reasonable, so mature. No one questioned it. But here's what really happened. She'd decided I was bad for her brand. I was the product that didn't sell. So she discontinued me. Life at home became unbearable. My mother barely spoke to me except to criticize. My father avoided conflict by burying himself in work. Noah and Emma had been trained so thoroughly that they treated me like I was the family problem. Emma once said to me, "Why can't you just be normal? Mom's blog is really important." She was 9 years old. When I was 14, things came to a head. It was Emma's 10th birthday party. My mother had organized an elaborate event at our house. She'd hired a professional photographer, not my father this time, someone expensive. There were decorations, a dessert table, a balloon arch. 20 kids from Emma's class attended. It was all being documented for a sponsored post with Party City. I was told to stay in my room during the party, but I needed to use the bathroom, and the one upstairs was occupied, so I came downstairs. I walked through the living room where the party was happening. Just walked through, trying to get to the other bathroom. My mother saw me. In front of all those parents, all those kids, the photographer, she looked at me and said, "Maya, what are you doing? You're not supposed to be here. Go back upstairs." One of the other mothers said, "Oh, I didn't know you had another daughter." My mother's smile was frozen. She's very shy. She prefers not to participate. But her eyes told me the truth. I was ruining her content. I was the mistake that kept showing up in the frame. That night, after everyone left, she sat me down at the kitchen table. My father stood behind her, silent as always. "This isn't working, Maya," she said. "You're clearly unhappy here, and your presence is disruptive to the family dynamic." I was 14 years old. I said, "What are you talking about?" "I've spoken with your aunt, my sister Karen. She's agreed to take you in. You'll be happier in Toronto. Smaller household, less pressure. You can finish high school there." I stared at her. "You're sending me away? I'm giving you space to grow into whoever you need to be. Without the spotlight you clearly can't handle." My father finally spoke. "Christine, maybe we should. Richard, we discussed this. Maya needs a fresh start. We all do." Within 2 weeks, I was on a plane to Toronto. My mother had arranged everything. I moved in with Aunt Karen, who was kind, but had no idea what she was taking on. My mother told the family I needed a change of scenery and wanted to live in a bigger city. She made it sound like my choice. The blog never mentioned my departure, because I'd never existed there to begin with. Aunt Karen gave me stability. She got me into therapy. I was diagnosed with generalized anxiety disorder and sensory processing issues. With treatment and support, I started to heal. I finished high school in Toronto. I discovered I was brilliant with numbers, patterns, logic, things that made sense when people didn't. I got accepted to the University of Toronto for Commerce, specialized in accounting. I graduated with honors. I became a CPA. I built a career finding financial fraud. I was good at it because I understood how people hide the truth. I'd watched an expert do it my whole childhood. I didn't speak to my mother for 11 years. From age 14 to 25. She never called, never texted, never sent a birthday card. Neither did my father. Noah and Emma friend requested me on Facebook when they turned 18, but our conversations were awkward and surface level. We were strangers who happened to share DNA. I followed the blog, though. I couldn't help myself. I watched from a distance as my mother's empire grew. She published 2 books, Honestly Perfect, Raising Confident Kids in a Complicated World, and The Bloom Method, Parenting with Purpose. She did a TEDx talk about authentic motherhood. She launched a podcast. She signed with a major speakers bureau. She was making well over $200,000 annually from her content, appearances, and deals, all built on a foundation of lies. In every interview, every post, every speech, she talked about her 2 children. Noah, the sensitive artist, Emma, the driven athlete. She shared their struggles, their triumphs, their teenage years. She built her credibility on radical honesty about the hard parts of parenting. She never mentioned that she'd legally emancipated her 3rd child at 14 and sent her away. Oh, didn't I mention that part? She had me legally emancipated. Filed paperwork claiming I was self-sufficient and living independently by choice. Aunt Karen signed as my guardian. It was all very official. It meant she had no financial responsibility for me, no obligation to claim me on taxes. I essentially stopped being her child in the eyes of the law. I found out when I applied for student loans and saw the documentation. That's when I started keeping my own files. I want to be clear about something. I didn't spend those 11 years plotting revenge. I spent them healing, building a life, going to therapy, learning that my mother's inability to love me wasn't a reflection of my worth. I created a good life in Vancouver. I had friends, a career I loved, a nice apartment. I was happy, or at least I was getting there. But then, 3 months ago, everything changed. I got an email from someone named Jennifer Park, an editor at Penguin Random House Canada. The subject line read, "Verification Request, Christina Bloom Memoir." My hands were shaking when I opened it. The email explained that my mother was publishing a memoir. It was scheduled for release in 6 months. The title was Grief and Grace: Lessons from Losing My Eldest Daughter. The book was being marketed as my mother's journey through losing a child and finding purpose in pain. Jennifer Park was reaching out because they needed to verify certain facts for their legal team. Specifically, they needed a copy of my death certificate. I read that sentence 3 times. My death certificate. I called the number in the email signature. Jennifer Park answered on the second ring. "Hi, this is Maya Reeves," I said. "You emailed me about my death certificate." There was a long pause. "I'm sorry, who?" "Maya Reeves. Christine Reeves' eldest daughter. The one she's written a memoir about grieving." Another pause. "I'm confused. Are you a family member calling on behalf of—" "I'm the dead daughter. Except I'm not dead. I'm very much alive." I could hear her typing frantically. "Miss Reeves, I'm going to need to put you on hold and conference in our legal team." That call lasted 2 hours. I explained everything: the erasure, the emancipation, the 11 years of no contact. I offered to send documentation: my driver's license, my CPA certification, my university records, anything they needed to prove I was alive. They asked if I'd be willing to sign an affidavit. I said yes. Then I asked them to send me an advance copy of the memoir. They hesitated, but given the circumstances, they agreed. The PDF arrived in my email that evening. It was 342 pages long. I read it in one sitting. I didn't sleep that night. The book was beautifully written, I'll give her that. My mother had always been a talented writer. The premise was that her eldest daughter, Maya, had died in a car accident at age 14. The accident happened shortly after a difficult period where Maya had been struggling with mental health issues and family conflict. According to the memoir, my mother had been driving me to a therapy appointment when we were hit by a drunk driver. I died at the scene. She survived with minor injuries. The guilt, she wrote, was unbearable. She blamed herself for not getting me help sooner, for not recognizing the depth of my pain. The The rest of the book was about her grief journey, how she learned to forgive herself, how she poured her pain into raising Noah and Emma, how losing me made her a better mother to them, how she found purpose by helping other parents through her blog and books. There were entire chapters about my childhood, fabricated stories about my interests, my personality, my dreams. She wrote about my love of painting, which was actually Noah's hobby. She wrote about my passion for soccer, which was Emma's sport. She created a version of me that never existed, then killed her off to seem profound. The most disturbing part was the middle section. She described my funeral, the closed casket because my injuries were too severe, the 200 people who attended, the eulogy she gave, the white lilies she chose, the cemetery plot where I was buried. She described visiting my grave every week, talking to me, bringing fresh flowers. She even included photos in the book proposal, the editor's notes said. Photos of a headstone with my name on it. I sat at my kitchen table in Vancouver, staring at my laptop screen, and I realized something. My mother hadn't just erased me from her public life. She'd killed me off, created an elaborate lie, and now she was monetizing my death. The advance for this memoir, according to the publishing contract details Jennifer Park shared with me, was $125,000. The book tour was already scheduled, 16 cities across Canada and the US. Major morning shows were interested in interviews. It was being positioned as the next big memoir in the grief literature category. I could stop it with one phone call, one affidavit. The publisher would pull the book. It would never see daylight. But I didn't want to just stop it. I wanted the truth to come out in a way that couldn't be buried or explained away. So I started investigating. I used my forensic accounting skills to dig into my mother's business finances. I filed Freedom of Information requests. I contacted the insurance companies. I traced paper trails. And here's what I found. 15 years ago, when I was 14 and sent to live with Aunt Karen, my mother filed a life insurance claim. She claimed I'd died in a car accident. She collected a $250,000 payout from a policy my father's employer provided for dependent children. Insurance fraud, federal offense. But it got worse. For the past 15 years, she'd been claiming tax deductions for grief counseling related to losing a child. Thousands of dollars per year. She'd created fake receipts from a therapist who didn't exist. Tax fraud, also a federal offense. She'd also accepted donations through her blog for a Maya Memorial Fund that was supposed to support children's mental health initiatives. Over $60,000 had been donated over the years. That money went into her personal accounts, never to charity. Charity fraud. You see the pattern. I compiled everything into a folder: documents, bank statements, insurance claims, tax returns. I obtained through various legal channels. I had enough evidence to put her in prison. But I still wasn't sure what to do with it. Part of me wanted to report her to the authorities immediately. Part of me wanted to confront her first. Part of me, the part that was still that 14-year-old girl being sent away, just wanted her to look me in the eye and explain why I wasn't worth loving. Then I got a text from Noah. We'd been messaging occasionally over the past year, our relationship slowly thawing. The text said, "Hey, did you see Mom's doing a big book launch event in Vancouver next month? She'd probably love if you came. I know things have been weird, but maybe it's time?" I looked at the event details he sent. It was at the Vancouver Convention Center. A ticketed event, 200 seats. Panel discussion about grief and healing, followed by a book signing and Q&A. The date was exactly 4 weeks away. I bought a ticket under a different name. I booked the day off work. And I prepared. I want to be clear about my intentions. I didn't want to humiliate my mother for sport. I didn't want revenge for the sake of revenge. But I needed the truth to be public. I needed her to face what she'd done. And I needed to prove to myself that I existed, that I mattered, that erasing me had consequences. The day of the event arrived. It was a Saturday in October, raining typically for Vancouver. I dressed carefully. Black pants, white blouse, blazer, professional, credible. I pulled my hair back. I wore minimal makeup. I wanted to look exactly like what I was. A competent adult woman, not a ghost. I brought a messenger bag with my folder of documents, everything organized with tabs and highlighted sections. I also brought my laptop, with digital backups of everything. The venue was impressive. 200 seats facing a stage with a panel set up. Book displays everywhere. Posters with my mother's face. Christina Bloom. Grief and Grace book tour. Professional photographers were positioned around the room. I took a seat in the back row. I watched people file in. Mostly women, aged 30 to 60. Fans who'd followed her blog for years. They were clutching advance copies of the memoir, excited to meet their parenting guru in person. My mother arrived 15 minutes before the event started. She looked good, 51 years old, but could pass for 40. Her hair was professionally styled. She wore a cream-colored dress that photographed well. She smiled and waved at the crowd like a politician. Noah and Emma were with her, both in their 20s now. I hadn't seen them in person in over a decade. Noah had grown tall, beard, tattoo sleeve on his left arm. Emma looked like a younger version of our mother. Same confident posture. The moderator was a local morning show host. She opened the event with effusive praise for my mother's bravery and vulnerability in sharing her grief journey. The audience applauded. For 40 minutes, I listened to my mother talk about losing me. She told the car accident story with tears in her eyes. She described the moment she knew I was gone. She talked about the guilt, the what-ifs, the therapy that helped her survive. She was convincing. If I didn't know the truth, I would have believed every word. The moderator asked, "What do you think Maya would say to you now, if she could?" My mother paused, wiping her eyes. "I think she'd say she forgives me. I think she'd want me to keep living, keep helping other parents avoid the mistakes I made. I carry her with me every day. She's the reason I do this work." The audience made sympathetic sounds. Several people were crying. Then the moderator said, "Let's open it up for questions from the audience." Hands shot up immediately. The moderator called on a woman in the third row who asked about coping strategies. Then a man in the middle who asked about supporting grieving spouses. Standard questions. I waited. After the fifth question, during a lull, while the moderator scanned for more hands, I stood up. "I have a question," I said. My voice was steady. The moderator gestured to me. "Yes, in the back?" All eyes turned to me, including my mother's. I walked down the center aisle, slowly, deliberately. I wanted her to see me coming. I watched recognition dawn on her face. Her smile froze. Her hand went to her throat. Emma whispered something to Noah. He looked at me and went pale. I stopped about 10 feet from the stage, close enough that she couldn't pretend not to hear me, far enough that I had space. "Hi, Mom," I said. "It's me, Maya, your eldest daughter." The room went silent. Confused murmurs rippled through the audience. My mother recovered quickly. Years of performing for cameras gave her that skill. She laughed, but it was strained. "Maya, sweetheart, this isn't the time or place." "Actually, it's the perfect time and place," I interrupted. "You're here talking about grieving me, about the car accident that killed me when I was 14, about visiting my grave. So, I think this is exactly the right place for me to ask my question." The moderator looked between us, bewildered. "I'm sorry, I don't understand." "She's confused," my mother said quickly. This is very difficult. My daughter Maya passed away 15 years ago. This woman has some sort of, I don't know what this is, but..." I pulled out my driver's license and held it up. "My name is Maya Christine Reeves. Born June 15th, 1995. That makes me 29 years old, which is 15 years older than the 14-year-old who allegedly died in your car accident." I walked closer to the stage and handed my license to the moderator. She stared at it, then at my mother, then at me. "This is clearly a disturbed individual," my mother said, her voice rising. "Security. Can we please?" "I'm not disturbed, Mom. I'm a certified professional accountant. I specialize in forensic analysis, and I've been analyzing your finances. I opened my messenger bag and pulled out the folder. It was thick, organized with colored tabs. In 2010, when I was 14, you didn't drive me to therapy. You put me on a plane to Toronto to live with Aunt Karen. You legally emancipated me. And then you filed a life insurance claim stating I'd died in a car accident. You collected $250,000. The audience was completely silent now. Every phone in the room was recording. Over the next 15 years, you claimed tax deductions for grief therapy you never received. You accepted donations for a memorial fund in my name. $60,000 that went directly into your personal account. And now you're publishing a memoir about my death, profiting again from a lie you've maintained for over a decade. I walked up the stairs onto the stage. My mother stepped back. I have copies of the insurance claim, the tax returns, the bank statements, the PayPal donations, everything. I held up the folder. I've already provided all of this to the Canada Revenue Agency, the Insurance Fraud Division, and the publisher's legal team. Emma stood up from her seat at the side of the stage. Maya? Her voice was small, uncertain. I looked at her. My little sister, who'd been 9 years old the last time we lived in the same house. It's me, Emma. I'm real. I've been real this whole time. Noah was crying. He'd covered his face with his hands. I turned back to my mother. You want to know what Maya would say to you if she could? Well, here I am. I'm saying it. My mother's perfect composure cracked. Tears were streaming down her face, but these weren't the calculated tears from moments earlier. These were panic. You erased me because I was bad for your brand. Because I had anxiety and didn't perform well on camera. Because I cost you a sponsorship deal. So you sent me away and then killed me off to make yourself look sympathetic. To build your empire on grief you didn't actually feel. My voice was getting louder. 15 years of silence breaking open. I was 14 years old. I was your daughter, and you chose money over me. The room erupted. Audience members were shouting questions. The photographers were taking pictures. The moderator was trying to restore order. My mother sank into her chair. She wasn't even trying to deny it anymore. I turned to face the audience. My name is Maya Reeves. I'm alive. I've been alive this whole time, and everything you've read about my death is a lie. Security did eventually escort me out, but not before I'd handed copies of my documentation to 3 different journalists in the audience. Not before Emma had hugged me, sobbing, saying, I thought you were dead. She told us you were dead. We had a funeral. That detail broke something in me. They'd had a funeral. For me. While I was alive. 1,600 kilometers away in Toronto. The event ended in chaos. The book launch was cancelled. Attendees demanded refunds. The video of my revelation went viral within hours. By the next morning, the publisher had pulled the memoir. They released a statement about factual inaccuracies that came to light. My mother's speaking agency dropped her. Her major sponsors terminated their contracts. The parenting blog that had defined her career for 18 years went dark. The criminal investigations took longer, but they're ongoing. The insurance company is suing for the return of the payout plus damages. The CRA is pursuing the tax fraud case. The charity fraud is being investigated by provincial authorities. My mother hasn't been charged yet, but her lawyer has advised her it's likely coming. Noah and Emma reached out immediately after the event. We met for dinner the following week. The 3 of us sat in a restaurant in Vancouver, trying to piece together our fractured history. She told us you died, Emma kept saying. She showed us photos. There was a casket. We went to a cemetery. I learned that my mother had staged an entire funeral when I was 14. Closed casket, she claimed, because the accident injuries were too severe. She'd even purchased a headstone. The cemetery plot was real. My name, my birth date, and a false death date were carved in granite. We grieved you, Noah said. His voice was hollow. We grew up thinking our sister was dead. I asked them if they remembered what I was actually like before I left. They had vague memories. Emma remembered that I didn't like getting my picture taken. Noah remembered that I spent a lot of time alone in my room. but most of their memories had been replaced by the stories our mother told. The fabricated Maya who loved painting and soccer. The troubled teenager who needed help. I tried to reach out when I turned 18, Noah admitted. I found you on Facebook. But Mom said you'd asked not to be contacted. That seeing us would be too painful because we reminded you of the family trauma. So, I didn't push. More lies. She'd been curating their perception of me even after I left. We're rebuilding our relationship now, the three of us. It's slow. There's a lot of hurt to work through. Emma started therapy to process it. Noah is angry in a way he doesn't quite know how to express yet. But we're trying. We're trying to be siblings again, without the cameras, without the performance, without the lies. As for my mother, I haven't spoken to her since that day at the convention center. She's sent emails through her lawyer. They all say some version of the same thing. That she's sorry, that she made mistakes, that her mental health was suffering and she didn't make good choices, that she hopes someday I can forgive her. I don't know if I will. Forgiveness feels like something she wants for her own peace, not something I need for mine. My father has reached out too. He wants to explain his role in everything. He says he was complicit but didn't know how to stop it. He's offered to testify about the insurance fraud if it helps my case. I told him I'd think about it. Mostly, I'm focused on moving forward. I'm still working in Vancouver. I'm still doing forensic accounting. But I've also started speaking publicly about family estrangement, about what happens when children are treated as content, about the dark side of influencer culture. I've been contacted by other people who were erased by parents who chose their online image over their real children. It's more common than you'd think. Kids who don't fit the aesthetic. Kids who won't perform on camera. Kids who are disabled, or queer, or neurodivergent, or just unwilling to participate in the family brand. We're starting a support network, helping each other navigate the legal and emotional aftermath of being treated as disposable. Because that's what this story is really about. Not revenge, not even justice, though that matters too. It's about the fundamental right to exist, to be seen, to take up space in the world without having to earn it by being palatable or profitable. For 15 years, I lived in a strange limbo, legally alive but culturally dead, present in my own life but absent from my family's narrative. I existed, but only to the people in my immediate circle. To everyone else, to the hundreds of thousands who followed my mother's blog, I was a ghost story, a tragedy, a lesson about parenting failures. Standing on that stage, speaking my truth, I reclaimed my existence. I made it impossible for anyone to pretend I was dead. I forced the world to acknowledge that I'm here, that I've always been here, that erasing me had consequences. There's a lesson in this for anyone who's been made invisible by people who were supposed to love them. Your existence doesn't require anyone's permission. Your worth isn't determined by whether someone chooses to acknowledge you. The people who erase you are revealing their limitations, not yours. I exist. I know who I am now. Not the fabricated version my mother created and killed off for sympathy. Not the anxious, difficult child she couldn't monetize. I'm Maya Reeves, 29 years old, forensic accountant, survivor of family erasure, and someone who learned that the most powerful thing you can do is tell the truth when everyone around you is invested in the lie. If you're someone who's been erased, written out of family photos, excluded from the narrative, told you're too difficult, or too different, or too much, I want you to hear this. You are not the problem. Being authentic is not a character flaw. Refusing to perform is not a failure. And your family's inability to make space for the real you says everything about them and nothing about your value. Document everything. Trust your experience. Build a chosen family if your biological one can't see you. And when you're ready, when you're strong enough, tell your truth, not for revenge, but for liberation. Because you exist, you matter. And nobody, not even the people who raised you, has the right to erase you from the story of your own life. I went back to that cemetery. By the way, the one where my mother had placed a headstone with my name on it. I stood in front of that grave, reading the inscription, Maya Christine Reeves, 1995 to 2009, forever in our hearts. I took a photo of it, not for social media, just for myself, proof that this really happened, that she went that far. Then I left. Because that grave is empty. It always was. And I have a life to live.